Let's consider this scenario. We have high tide occurring at 2 a.m., at which time the water reaches a depth of 16 feet. Low tide occurs at 6 a.m., when the water's depth is 10 feet. And what we want to do is find a model for the depth of the water over time. Okay, so let's start off by assuming that at 12 o'clock, 12 a.m., that's hour 0. So 1 o'clock, 1 a.m. would be 1, 2 a.m. 2, and so forth. Now, since we know where the maximum occurs, let's use this model. A cosine B T minus C plus D. And the reason I say since we know where the maximum occurs, where the maximum depth of the water occurs, we use cosine instead of sine, is because this helps us to determine what C is. Because normally for cosine, the maximum occurs at t at 0. So if the max occurs somewhere else, we can just say, okay, that's the horizontal shift here. So here we go. Let's first of all find D. Now D is going to be the mean depth of the water. So we take the high point, which is 16, the low point, which is 10. We add those together, get the average, divide by 2. So we get 26 divided by 2, which is 13. So we have the D part. Now let's get the A part. The A is going to be the distance from D up to the max. So this is going to be 16 minus 13, which equals 3 feet. See? So we take the maximum depth of the water minus the average depth, and we get the amplitude, 3. Now, the maximum depth of the water occurs at 2 a.m. So for cosine, the maximum usually, it starts off, we have a max at 0. Well, if the max occurs at 2, then we can think of that as a shift. So we'll call that C equals 2. Now we've got to figure out what B is. Well, remember that the period, if we want to find the period, it's equal to 2 pi divided by B. That means that B, using a little bit of algebra, we get 2 pi over the period. So if we only knew the period, we could find B. Well, think about it. At 2 a.m. we have high tide. At 6 a.m. we have low tide. That's 4 hours to go from high tide to low tide. Well, that's half of a period because it's got to get back to the high tide to call that a full period. So we just double it. So 8 hours. So B is equal to 2 pi divided by 8. So that's pi over 4. So now we have our model. We have y equals the depth of the water is going to be 3 cosine pi over 4 t minus 2 plus 13. Just putting all the parts together. And this will give us a model for the depth of the water over time.